She mistook a millionaire CEO for her taxi driver, but that mistake changed everything. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support truly means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. The morning sun was barely rising over San Francisco, painting the skyline with a soft golden hue. Traffic hummed through the streets, a mix of honking cars, coffee steam, and hurried footsteps. Lina Brooks clutched the strap of her worn leather bag and jogged toward the curb in front of the Palace Hotel, her chest tight with panic. Her flight to Los Angeles left in 40 minutes, and missing it meant losing the one chance to deliver her painting for the state art exhibition. When a sleek black Mercedes pulled up near the curb, she barely looked at the driver. The man wore a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled up, hands resting calmly on the steering wheel. He looked up, startled, as she yanked the door open and jumped in. "Union Square, please. I'm in a hurry," she blurted out, catching her breath. The man blinked. "Excuse me?" She buckled her seatbelt and pointed ahead. "I said Union Square. The traffic light's green. Let's go." Huh. For a split second, Ethan Cole, founder and CEO of Coltech Industries, considered explaining that this was his private car, not a rideshare. But something in the girl's flushed face and trembling hands stopped him. Her jeans were paint-stained, her jacket too thin for the morning chill, yet her eyes held a kind of fierce determination that amused him. He gave a small, almost imperceptible smile and shifted the gear. "Buckle up then, you are cutting it close." Tome. As the car moved, Lina leaned her head against the window, clutching a large cardboard tube against her chest. Inside, it was her painting, City Lights Seen from a Taxi Window, the one she had poured every hour of her sleepless nights into. She did not notice the subtle scent of expensive cologne filling the air, or how clean the dashboard looked compared to any taxi she had ever taken. Instead, she talked to the man she thought was a stranger trying to make ends meet. "You must drive a lot around here, huh? I always thought taxi drivers have the best stories. You get to see the whole city for free." Ethan chuckled quietly. "You could say that." Lina smiled at the faint warmth in his voice. "I am an artist. Or, well, trying to be. But right now, I just need to get this painting to the courier before the deadline. If I make it, maybe I can finally afford a proper studio instead of painting in my kitchen." 12. Ethan glanced at her reflection in the rearview mirror. There was no pretense in her tone, only honesty, raw and simple. It was the kind of sincerity that money could never buy, and he found himself strangely drawn to it. When the car finally stopped near the corner of Powell and Geary, Lina fumbled for her wallet. "How much for the ride?" she asked. Ethan hesitated for a moment, then said softly, "No charge. Consider it a lucky morning." Her eyes widened. "Are you sure? I cannot—" He waved a hand lightly. "Go. You will miss your flight." She jumped out, clutching her painting, and shouted through the open window, "Thank you. I will remember this." Ethan watched her disappear into the crowd, her messy ponytail bouncing, her determination somehow contagious. For the first time in months, he caught himself smiling for no reason at all. And somewhere deep inside, he already knew this small misunderstanding was only the beginning. A week later, the sun over San Francisco Bay shimmered against glass towers and calm water. Inside one of those towers, Ethan Cole stood before a window that stretched from floor to ceiling. The skyline looked almost unreal from his office, but his thoughts were miles away. The memory of the girl from the hotel, the one who mistook him for a taxi driver, kept replaying in his mind like an echo he could not silence. Her voice had been full of life, her eyes full of stubborn hope. He found himself smiling again, then immediately shook his head, irritated at his own distraction. "Mr. Cole, your afternoon board meeting is in 15 minutes. His assistant reminded from the doorway. Ethan nodded, adjusting his tie. "Thank you, Clara. I will be there soon." But even as he said it, his gaze drifted toward the city below, wondering if she had made it to her flight, if her painting had arrived in time. Across town, Lina Brooks stepped out of a bus near a small art supply store. Her exhibit submission had been accepted, though she had not won any prize. Still, her piece would hang for a week in a modest gallery in Los Angeles, and that alone was victory enough for her. She returned to San Francisco to her usual life, working mornings at a cafe and painting at night. The encounter with the kind taxi driver lingered in her memory, half embarrassing, half magical. Sometimes she laughed to herself, imagining the story she would tell if she ever met him again. That afternoon, rain clouds rolled in from the Pacific, and the cafe filled with customers escaping the drizzle. Lina was refilling cups when the door opened, letting in a gust of wind and a man in a dark coat. She looked up, her breath catching. The same quiet confidence, the same steady eyes him. For a heartbeat, she froze. Then she blinked quickly, fumbling for professionalism. "Welcome, sir. What can I get you?" she asked, her voice a little too bright. Ethan smiled faintly. "Coffee, black, please." She nodded, turning toward the counter, her hands trembling just enough to spill a few drops of cream on the tray. "Great, perfect, coming right up." She tried to hide her blush. Inside, her thoughts were racing. Did he remember her? Or was she just another stranger now? When she placed the cup in front of him, he spoke quietly. "I think we have met before." Lina's heart skipped. "Oh, at the hotel. You were driving that black car." Ethan nodded. "That was me." Her cheeks burned. "I am so sorry about that. I really thought you were my rideshare driver. I should have looked closer." "No apology needed," he said. "You were in a hurry. It happens." Something about the way he said it, gentle, amused, almost grateful, made her shoulders relax. For a moment, the noise of the cafe faded away, and it was just the two of them. She found herself laughing softly. "You must have thought I was crazy." "I thought you were determined," he replied. "Not many people chase their dreams that hard before sunrise." She looked up, surprised by his choice of words. "How do you know that?" He gestured to the cardboard tube leaning beside her bag. "You still carry your art with you." Lina laughed, the sound genuine this time. "Old habits. I never know when inspiration might hit." Ethan took a slow sip of his coffee, watching her with quiet interest. "If you ever want someone to see your work, I know a few gallery owners who would appreciate your talent." She blinked, startled by the offer. "You do?" He nodded, his expression unreadable. "It is part of my field." Before she could ask more, the cafe manager called her name from behind the counter. She excused herself, and by the time she returned, Ethan was gone. On the table lay a folded napkin with a single line written in precise handwriting. "Do not stop painting, E.C." She stared at the initials for a long time, her heart beating faster than it should. She did not know who he really was, or why that note felt so important. But somehow, in a city of millions, the world suddenly felt smaller, and her dream a little closer than before. Outside, the rain eased into a gentle drizzle. Lina stepped to the window, holding the napkin like a secret, unaware that Ethan Cole, from his car across the street, was still watching, his expression thoughtful, almost protective. For the first time in years, he was not thinking about business, or deadlines, or success. He was thinking about her. And that realization scared him more than he cared to admit. The following week brought the crisp chill of early spring to San Francisco, the kind of weather that smelled like salt and coffee. The city looked bright under the morning sun, but for Lina Brooks, each day blurred into the same routine: cafe mornings, paint-stained evenings, and silent prayers that things would somehow get better. She still carried the napkin Ethan had left behind, folded neatly inside her sketchbook. Sometimes she would open it, trace the initials E.C. with her fingertip, and wonder who he really was. One rainy Thursday afternoon, she was restocking coffee beans in the back room when her manager called. "Lina, someone's asking for you." She wiped her hands and hurried out, expecting a customer with a complaint. Instead, standing at the counter in a charcoal gray suit, was Ethan Cole. His presence filled the small cafe, effortlessly calm, poised, entirely out of place among the smell of espresso and burnt toast. "Good afternoon," he said, a polite smile on his face. "I hope I am not interrupting." Her pulse skipped. "Oh, not at all. Would you like your usual coffee?" "Actually," he said, glancing around, "I came to ask if you would join me for lunch." Lina blinked, unsure she had heard correctly. "Lunch with you?" "Yes," he replied simply. "I would like to discuss something that might interest you." Her first instinct was to refuse, but curiosity won. Half an hour later, they sat in a small bistro near the Embarcadero, the kind of place where sunlight filtered through ivy-covered windows and soft jazz played in the background. Ethan broke the silence. I wanted to thank you again for that morning. Your painting, your story, it reminded me of something I had forgotten. Lina tilted her head. Forgotten? That there is beauty in trying, even when the odds are against you. She smiled shyly. You sound like you know something about impossible odds. His gaze softened. Perhaps I do. When the waiter left, Ethan leaned forward slightly. I am funding an art charity, an initiative for underprivileged artists across California. We are looking for someone with your background, someone who understands the struggle firsthand. Would you be interested? Lina stared at him, speechless. Wait, you want me to work for you? Work with me, he corrected. I would like you to help curate community projects. It is part of a foundation we are building. Her hands trembled around her glass of water. The offer felt unreal, like a dream she had no right to touch. Why me? She whispered. Ethan smiled faintly. Because when you mistook me for a taxi driver, you treated me with respect. You did not care who I was. That honesty is rare. She felt her throat tighten, unsure how to respond. I do not know what to say. Say yes, he said softly. At least come to the office tomorrow. No pressure. Lina nodded slowly, her heart pounding. All right, I will come. The next day, she took the bus across town, gripping the strap of her worn bag. The address led her to a sleek glass building with the sign Tech Industries gleaming across the entrance. She paused, suddenly nervous, and only then did the truth begin to dawn on her. The receptionist greeted her warmly. Good morning, Miss Brooks. Mr. Cole is expecting you. So, her breath caught. Mr. Cole? The elevator doors opened to a panoramic view of the bay. Ethan stood by the window, his posture relaxed, his eyes calm but unreadable. Welcome, he said. I am glad you came. Lina stepped forward, the world tilting slightly as everything clicked into place. You are Ethan Cole, she whispered. Ethan Cole, CEO of this company. He nodded once. I am sorry I did not say this earlier. I wanted you to know me without the titles. So, for a moment, she could only stare, words tangled in her throat. You let me think you were a taxi driver. He smiled gently. It was the best mistake I have ever been part of. Her heart thudded in her chest. So this foundation, this job, it is real? Completely real, Ethan said. And if you accept, it will not just change your life. It might change mine too. She looked at him, torn between disbelief and wonder. Outside the wide windows, sunlight shimmered over the Pacific, casting gold across his face. In that instant, she knew her life had shifted again. Just as suddenly as it had that morning, she opened the wrong car door. Ethan extended his hand. What do you say, Miss Brooks? Lina hesitated for a heartbeat, then took it. I say, yes. And somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice whispered that fate had only just begun to reveal its plan. The following morning, sunlight spilled through the tall windows of Tech headquarters. The air smelled faintly of coffee and polished marble. Lina Brooks stepped out of the elevator with cautious steps, her heart thudding as she followed a sleek assistant down the hallway. Every surface gleamed, every voice spoke in low confidence. She felt like she had wandered into a different universe, one built on glass, ambition, and money. Ethan was waiting in the conference room. The space overlooked the bay, filled with natural light and quiet authority. He looked up when she entered, his expression softening. Good morning, Lina. Did you find the place all right? She nodded quickly. Yes. It is beautiful. Intimidating, but beautiful. He smiled faintly. You will get used to it. He walked her through the office, introducing her to a few department heads. Everyone addressed him as Mr. Cole, with a level of respect that made Lina's stomach twist. He carried himself with calm precision, yet when he looked at her, there was always that trace of warmth, the same one she had seen in the cafe. By noon, he took her to a quieter floor, the Cole Foundation offices. The walls were lined with photographs of children holding paintbrushes, murals on community centers, and smiling volunteers. This, Ethan said, is where you will work. The foundation funds public art programs across California. Your role will be to curate new projects, visit schools, and manage exhibitions. Lina ran her fingers lightly along a framed photo. You did all this? Ethan nodded. It started small, but it has grown. I want it to mean something more than business. Her voice softened. That is incredible. He met her eyes. So are you. For a moment, the air shifted. There was silence, deep and gentle, until the intercom buzzed. Mr. Cole, your father's lawyer is here for the family trust meeting. The moment broke. Ethan straightened his tie. I am afraid I have to go. But I will see you tonight. We are hosting a gala at the Golden Gate Hotel. It is formal. I would like you to come. Me? At a gala? Lina almost laughed. I do not even own a dress. Then let the company handle that, he said. Consider it part of the job. That evening, a car arrived to pick her up. She stepped out at the hotel entrance, wearing a simple navy gown that fit her like it had been made just for her. The chandelier lights reflected in her eyes as she walked through the ballroom doors. Ethan was waiting near the stage, dressed in a black tuxedo, speaking with investors. The moment he saw her, his words trailed off. Every conversation around them faded as his gaze met hers. You look stunning, he said quietly when she approached. She smiled nervously. Thank you. This place feels like a movie. He offered his arm. Then let us play our parts. They moved through the crowd together. Every glance from guests carried curiosity and speculation. Lina tried to focus on breathing evenly, but her pulse would not settle. When a reporter approached, asking about their relationship, Ethan simply smiled and said, Miss Brooks is my most trusted partner in the foundation. For a moment, she thought he had chosen his words carefully, not just to protect her, but to claim her place beside him without explanation. As the music swelled, he leaned closer and whispered, You do not have to be anyone else tonight. Just yourself. Lina looked up at him beneath the golden light. Then I will try. Ethan's voice was soft, almost unheard over the orchestra. You already are. And as they stood there among strangers, she realized that something between them had shifted once again. Not in words, but in the quiet certainty of two lives beginning to intertwine. The gala continued late into the night, filled with music, laughter, and the clinking of champagne glasses. From the balcony, Lina Brooks could see the city glowing below the Golden Gate Hotel, every light reflected in the bay like a promise. Yet despite the glamour surrounding her, she still felt like an outsider wearing borrowed confidence. Ethan stood beside her, his hands resting loosely in his pockets. The tuxedo fit him perfectly, his every movement precise, yet unforced. Are you enjoying yourself? He asked quietly. She gave a small smile. It is beautiful, but I keep waiting for someone to tap my shoulder and ask what I am doing here. He turned to her, his expression soft but firm. You belong here, Lina. Do not let anyone make you think otherwise. Before she could reply, a voice behind them broke the calm. Ethan Cole. I should have known you would make an entrance. A tall woman approached, confident and polished, her diamond earrings catching the light. Ethan's jaw tightened slightly. Lina, this is Victoria Hale. She handles public relations for several of our investors. Victoria's smile was thin and cool. And you must be Lina Brooks, she said, extending her hand. I work with the foundation. How lovely, Victoria said, her tone too sweet to be genuine. I did not realize the foundation required such personal attention from the CEO. Got you? Ethan's eyes hardened. Victoria, that is enough. She lifted a brow. Just making conversation. She turned back to Lina, her voice soft but edged. Enjoy the evening, Miss Brooks. You will find this world can be difficult for newcomers. With that, she walked away, heels clicking sharply against marble. Lina exhaled slowly. Well, that was pleasant. Ethan sighed. Do not mind her. Some people fear change more than failure. She looked at him carefully. She used to be close to you, did she not? His pause was answer enough. A long time ago. And it ended for a reason. They moved back into the ballroom, and as they walked past the crowd, whispers followed them like shadows. Lina held her head high, trying to focus on the music, but the weight of every stare pressed against her skin. She felt Ethan's hand brush lightly against hers, a silent reassurance. Later, when the final song began, he turned to her and said, Dance with me. I panned. Her heart stuttered. Ethan, I do not really. Just follow my lead. He guided her gently into the rhythm, his hand steady at her waist. For the first time that night, she forgot the glittering crowd, the judgment, the gap between their worlds. There was only the quiet hum of the orchestra and the warmth of his presence. As the song ended, he leaned closer, his voice almost a whisper. You handled yourself with grace tonight. I am proud of you. She smiled, eyes bright. Thank you. That means more than you know. When the guests began to leave, Ethan escorted her to the car waiting outside. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of jasmine from the hotel garden. Before she stepped in, he hesitated. Tomorrow, I have a family event in Napa Valley. It is complicated. But I want you to come with me. It is important. She blinked, surprised. Me? Why? Because you remind me of what is real, he said simply. And I might need that. Douvre. Lina hesitated for a moment, then nodded. All right. I will go. As the car door closed, Ethan watched her drive away, the taillights fading into the fog. For a long time, he stood there, feeling the pull of something he could not quite name, a quiet, dangerous hope that maybe, for once, something genuine was beginning in the most unexpected place. The next afternoon, the road stretched north along the California coast, winding between cliffs and the silver shimmer of the Pacific. Lina Brooks sat in the passenger seat of Ethan's black sedan, her hands folded tightly in her lap. The air smelled faintly of sea salt and leather. She had never been to Napa Valley, and the closer they got, the more unreal it felt. Rolling hills, vineyards, sunlight spilling through clouds like gold. Ethan glanced at her briefly, his hands steady on the wheel. You do not have to be nervous. It is just a small family gathering. She looked out the window, smiling faintly. You say that, but you are wearing a suit, and the car costs more than my apartment. He laughed softly. Point taken. My father's estate can be formal, but I would not bring you if I did not want you there. When they arrived, the Cole family vineyard looked like something out of a movie-wide stone terraces, fountains, and gardens full of white roses. Staff moved quietly between tables set under a canopy of vines. Ethan's father, Richard Cole, stood near the veranda, surrounded by guests in elegant clothes. Ethan, Richard said as they approached, his tone warm but authoritative. You finally made it. His gaze shifted to Lina, polite but assessing. And who might this be? Ethan's voice was calm. This is Lina Brooks. She works with me at the foundation. Richard smiled faintly, though his eyes held curiosity. A pleasure, Miss Brooks. I have heard much about the Foundation's recent projects. Oh? Lina shook his hand nervously. Thank you, Mr. Cole. It is an honor to meet you. Throughout the afternoon, she tried to stay composed as conversations flowed around her business talk, investment numbers, and family politics she barely understood. Ethan stayed near her side, quietly steering her through introductions. But not everyone was as kind. Near the dessert table, a middle-aged woman leaned in with a glass of wine and said softly, You are very brave to stand next to him like that. Most people would not dare. Lina frowned slightly. Why do you say that? The woman smiled without warmth. Because every woman who gets close to Ethan Cole becomes tomorrow's headline. Then she walked away, leaving a trace of expensive perfume and unkind laughter behind. Later, as the sun began to set over the vineyards, Ethan found Lina standing alone by the fountain. Her reflection rippled in the water, her expression distant. Are you all right? He asked. She nodded slowly. I just do not fit here. These people, this world, it is not mine. He stepped closer, his voice low and sincere. It is not mine either, not really. I built it because I thought success would fill the silence. But it never did. She looked up at him, surprised by the honesty in his tone. What did? He hesitated for a moment, then said quietly, Maybe this, talking to you. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The wind rustled the vines, and the last light of day faded into soft amber. When Richard called his son from across the lawn, Ethan gave Lina one last glance that lingered longer than it should have, something unspoken, fragile, and real. And as she watched him walk away, Lina realized that beneath all the wealth and perfection, Ethan Cole was lonelier than anyone she had ever met. The following week, the quiet rhythm between Ethan Cole and Lina Brooks began to shift. The trip to Napa had left something lingering, an unspoken closeness that neither dared to name. At the office, their conversations grew softer, their smiles more frequent. Yet the walls around Ethan's life, built by power and appearances, were beginning to tremble. Late one afternoon, the elevator doors opened to reveal Victoria Hale, her heels clicking sharply across the marble floor. She was holding a folder and an expression that hinted at trouble. "Ethan," she said smoothly, "we need to talk." He looked up from his desk. "If it is about the board meeting, it can wait." "It is not," she said, closing the office door behind her. "You have a problem. Or rather, we do." She placed a stack of glossy magazines in front of him. On the cover was a photograph of Ethan and Lina at the gala, his hand at her waist, her eyes lifted toward him. The headline read, "Billionaire CEO's Mystery Woman. Who is she?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "This is garbage." "To there." Victoria folded her arms. "Maybe. But the board will not see it that way. They think you are distracted. Some investors are already calling." When he did not respond, she leaned closer. "Ethan, you have to understand. These stories can ruin reputations. If she cares about you, she should stay out of sight for a while." His voice turned cold. "That is not your decision to make." "Maybe not," she said, her tone sharp as glass, "but it is your company on the line." Lumen. Lina found out later that day when she entered the lobby and saw her own picture flashing across a news screen. The sight made her heart stop. Customers whispered nearby. She felt her face burn, her body suddenly weightless. By the time she reached Ethan's office, he was pacing by the window, phone in hand. "They are exaggerating," he said quickly. "It will blow over." Lina held up the magazine. "You think this will just disappear? People are saying I am your lover, that you bought me a job." He started to speak, but she cut him off, her voice trembling. "Do you know what this feels like, Ethan? To have people laughing behind my back? To be treated like I am nothing but another rumor?" He moved closer, his tone urgent. "Lina, I never wanted this. I will fix it." Her eyes filled with tears. "You cannot fix the way people see me." For a long moment, silence stretched between them. Then she stepped back, shaking her head. "I worked my whole life to be seen for what I create, not for who I stand beside. I cannot lose that now." "Please," he said softly, but she was already walking toward the door. "Maybe this world of yours is too loud for someone like me," she said, "and maybe I was foolish to think I could belong in it." When the door closed, Ethan stood frozen, the city lights flickering behind him. For the first time, he realized the cost of the empire he had built. Not money, not power, but the simple chance to be understood. And now, the one person who had seen him clearly was gone. Days turned into weeks, and the silence between Ethan Cole and Lina Brooks stretched like an ocean neither of them knew how to cross. The tabloids moved on to other scandals, but the damage had already been done. Lina resigned quietly from the foundation, leaving behind her access badge and a handwritten note. "Thank you for believing in me, but I need to find who I am again outside of your shadow." Ethan read the note more times than he could count. His office felt colder without her laughter echoing down the hallway. Every painting on the foundation walls reminded him of her, the colors she had chosen, the warmth she brought into places once defined by numbers and deadlines. He tried to focus on work, but even success tasted hollow. One rainy evening, he drove without direction, ending up near the small cafe where they had first met again. Through the window, he saw her replacement behind the counter, but not her. On the opposite wall, a new poster caught his eye. Community Art Exhibit, The City Through Her Eyes. The name beneath it read, "Curated by Lina Brooks." Ethan stood frozen for a moment, then exhaled. He made a call that same night, and within days, quiet preparations began. 2 weeks later, the exhibit opened in a converted warehouse near Fisherman's Wharf. The space was filled with light, music, and the smell of fresh paint. Every canvas told a story of resilience and hope. At the center of the room hung a massive Pisan, oil painting of a rainy San Francisco street, seen through a car window. In the reflection of that glass, two blurred figures sat inside, a man and a woman, both smiling, both unseen by the world outside. Lina stood near the entrance, greeting guests, unaware that Ethan had just walked in. He paused behind the crowd, watching her calm confidence, her smile that reached her eyes again. When she finally noticed him, her breath caught. "Ethan," she said softly, unsure whether to be angry or grateful. He approached slowly, holding a folded envelope. "I am sorry for what happened. I should have protected you better, but I wanted to show you something." He handed her the envelope. Inside was a deed transfer form and a simple business card. The Brooks Community Art Center, funded by the Cole Foundation. Lina stared at the papers, speechless. "You did this?" He nodded. "It is yours. A place for artists like you. I only helped start it. Tears welled in her eyes. Why? Ethan's voice was low but steady. Because I finally understood that love is not proven by owning or saving someone. It is proven by giving them the freedom to create, to be seen. For a long moment, neither spoke. Around them, applause rippled as another artist took the stage. But the sound felt distant. Lina looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. You really kept your promise, did you not? He smiled faintly. You told me once your dream was to paint the city from the window of a taxi. I just made sure everyone else could see what I saw that day. Her eyes softened. Then maybe it was never a mistake. Ethan took her hand gently. No. It was the best accident of my life. And for the first time since they met, both of them felt that what began as confusion had finally become something clear, honest, and real. The night of the exhibition ended with the sound of soft rain against the glass roof. Most guests had left, but Lina Brooks and Ethan Cole remained, standing among the quiet glow of spotlights and half-empty glasses of champagne. The final painting, the one that captured their first meeting, hung above them like a silent witness to everything they had endured. Lina turned toward him, her voice gentle but uncertain. You did not have to do all of this. You already gave me a chance. Ethan shook his head slowly. It was never about giving you anything. It was about making things right. You reminded me what my success was supposed to mean. She studied him for a long moment, her expression softening. You really have changed. He smiled faintly. You were the reason I did. You showed me that love is not a contract or a headline. It is a choice we keep making every day. Outside, thunder rumbled faintly in the distance, followed by a hush that made the world feel still. Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Lina's breath caught. He opened it to reveal a simple silver ring, the same design as the one he had once given her for the foundation gala. Only now, a single word was engraved on the inside. Real. Her eyes filled with tears as he said softly, I do not want this to be a deal or a promise I can sign. I just want it to be honest. Lina, will you marry me not as a CEO and an artist, but as two people who found each other by accident? The world seemed to hold its breath. She looked down at the ring, then back at him, and for the first time, there was no fear in her eyes. Yes, she whispered. 1,000 times, yes. Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger, his hands trembling just enough to make her laugh through her tears. He leaned forward and kissed her softly, the kind of kiss that felt like coming home after a long journey. As the lights dimmed, rain cascaded down the glass ceiling, turning the reflections of their silhouettes into streaks of silver. In the distance, the sign for the Brooks Community Art Center glowed faintly through the misty beacon of what they had built together. Months later, the gallery reopened for a new collection titled The Best Mistake We Ever Made. At the entrance, a small plaque read, dedicated to everyone who ever stumbled into the right person by accident. Visitors often said the paintings in that exhibit felt alive, full of light and longing. And every now and then, when Ethan and Lina walked through the halls hand in hand, people whispered that the art was no longer just about color or technique. It was about two hearts that had found each other in the chaos of a California morning. And in that story, no one ever doubted that the mistake which began it all had, indeed, changed everything.